Hello everyone, it's Carol here at Aakash Journals. Now that my pages are all done for the Junk Journal January challenge, I can go in and actually bind my signatures into a cover. So that's what I'm going to be showing in this video. The journal I've got on the left hand side is the journal that I created last year for 2023, and it was a loose cover connected with some lace and a tie, and it was a concertina or accordion style journal that I created last year. Now, I've never made a soft cover journal using a paper bag, so I thought that I would try that for a bit of an extra challenge for me this year, or a bit of something new. So I'm just showing you here the fabric that I plan to use, and all the details for everything I use is in the description box below the video. Now, I've got this rituals bag which I've saved from before Christmas when I was doing my Christmas shopping, and I thought it would be ideal to use, but actually it didn't prove to be ideal for the simple fact that it didn't have paper handles. It had these wire handles that were covered with paper, and they were a bit of a challenge to remove. The handles themselves came out pretty easily, but they'd been attached to the bag with hot glue, so I spent a good while trying to get rid of the lumps of hot glue that were left. And then once that was done, I could conveniently glue down the flaps where the handles were held. So here I'm opening up the bottom of my bag, and there was a piece of craft card in there which I got rid of, and just opening my bag all out. Still got the side folds in place, and I'm just measuring whether or not I can do away with that top of the bag that I removed the handles from, because I'm still not happy with it and it's quite chunky. So I decided that I'll see what I can do if I open out the bag and see if I can use it sideways, and actually that was absolutely perfect. So here I am going in and I'm cutting off the top and the bottom of the bag, or the bottom portion of the bag that's opened out, just to create this size that I want, and then I go in and glue my bag closed, which I then realise as soon as I've done it was a mistake, because I didn't have anything to create a pocket with. So here I've got a piece of Amazon packaging. It was a padded bag, and I've just used one side of the bag and cut a portion that's bigger than my rituals bag so that I can have a flap and a pocket in the front of my my cover. So here I've ripped up some of that gorgeous fabric to create portions that I can use. So I'm just showing there that I've ripped an extra portion for the flap, and you might have noticed that I turned over a portion on the inside cover just to line my pocket partially. Now, I had a bit of a ridge on that packaging, so I decided to cut it away, and in my enthusiasm I actually trimmed a bit too close, and I decided that I needed to go in and reinforce it. I only trimmed it a bit too close for about a centimetre and a half at the bottom, but I'm doing a belt and braces and putting some paper tape down both sides of the what will be the fold or the spine. Here I'm cutting out some double-sided Bonder web that I'm going to use to adhere my fabric to both of those paper pieces, or the packaging. So that's a piece for the back, and I've cut out another piece for the flap to secure the fabric to the flap, and then this is the inside, and this is what everything looks like now that my fabric is adhered to my wrappings or my journal cover with Bonder web. I've got a scrap of fabric, and I've had a little play with some Speckled egg distress spray to see how it would take on the fabric. Sometimes fabric has a coating to it. It worked perfectly, so I'm going in here using a Joggles stencil, little mini stencil, and I'm spraying the inside and the outside of the cover, and as you can see I'm using both the negative and the positive side of that stencil. I also bring in a scrap of fabric This is what I've got here, and I'm spraying that as well because I'm going to be using this for my closure in due course, and I want it to match my cover, so that's what I'm doing there. As I want a celery closure for my inside pocket, I'm just cutting out some cardboard rings, and I glue 3 of those cardboard rings or circles together. I create 2 of those, so here I am just gluing those circles together to create the first of my celery closures, and then I'm just gluing them onto yet another scrap of fabric, and then I just go in with my scissors and trim round those circles. So there we are, there's my 2 closures, and I've punched a hole, and now I'm setting an eyelet, or I'm putting an eyelet, a large eyelet, into each of those holes. I'm not actually setting or crimping together the eyelet. I do that in due course, and there I am just positioning them. Before I actually set them in place, I want to go away and stitch all over the outside of my cover on my sewing machine to actually highlight the random stitching that was already there. And I also go in and stitch across the top of the pocket on the inside piece of the cover. So here I'm just going over everything with my bone folder to flatten down my stitches, and now I'm using the hole that I punched in those celery closures before I put the eyelet in to mark where I want them to actually be positioned. And I'm using a silent setter here. I don't have a big bite, but this is perfect for reaching those parts where you want to punch a hole to set these sort of closures or put an eyelet if you don't have a big bite. So here I am just setting it. It does take a bit of brute force, but it can be done. And now I go in with a little piece of fabric. Oh, this is me being tidy and putting my silent setter away. The zip on the case is actually broken, so that's why I'm putting in those elastic bands to hold it closed. And here I am going in with that scrap of fabric, as I said, to cover over the eyelet on the inside of my pocket. So I've stitched all the way around my cover so that it now is all joined together, and I'm just using my Crop-o-dile to put the second celery closure in place, and using some navy blue hemp twine to tie around those 2 circles to create the closure. So just tying a length to one of the celery closures, as you can see, and then wrapping it around the other one. There we go, and that's my closure, and that's my cover done. So now to bind in my signatures, I've created a little template for myself, 4 signatures, and I'm doing 5-hole pamphlet stitch to stitch them into my journal. And I've got my signatures spaced at 1.5 centimeters apart, so I'm just punching out holes here where my stitching has got to go, and using it folded in half to pop inside my cover, using a ruler to push it well into the corner. And I've got a couple of clips there, and I use that template and the holes that I've created with my awl to mark out where my holes are going to be on the actual cover itself. And here I'm just reinforcing those holes on the right side of the cover. So here, this is my first signature. I've got it into the fold of my first signature, and again I'm marking my 5 stitches where my sewing is going to go, and having pulled myself a length of thread, I'm starting to stitch in my first signature. So just working my way in and out up my up the spine and then back down again, just weaving in and out, tying a knot inside. Or here I'm just tightening up my threads and then tying a knot inside in the center of my signature, snipping a portion away, and then here I am just measuring out 3 lengths of thread. This is French waxed linen thread. So I'm just threading up a needle and going in to sew my second signature, just pushing the signature together with a ruler and then taking my template, same as before, and stitching the remainder of my signatures into my cover. One trick when you're stitching your journals into place is the end of your thread. Just clip under either your quilter's clips or whatever you use to hold your signature closed as you do the sewing. So if you use a paper clip, that's fine. Use that, and it really holds your thread in place until you're ready to tie off. So this is my finished journal, and I have to say I'm really pleased now that my signatures are all stitched in. This is my closure for it. Now this is Heidi Kyle's belt closure. I decided I'd give myself a little bit of a challenge and do it in fabric, and I will do a quick tutorial on this, although there are already some on YouTube. Basically it's a little origami fold that makes this portion here, and then this, which is your strap, just goes through. There we go. Grab hold of it on the other side and pull it through. And I was thinking that I would need to either put a Velcro dot here to hold it in place. You could put a D-ring and put a little hook on there. You could even put a button on there, but I'm finding that it's holding it nicely closed and it's working really well. So let me just show you the finished journal cover. As you can see, I've stitched over some of the fabric messy stitching that was part of the design, so I stitched over it on my sewing machine. There's my signatures, 4 signatures stitched in place. 5-hole pamphlet stitch, so nothing special about that, and that's what it looks like. And obviously my pocket inside here, there we go, for my Junk Journal January prompts to go inside. Now I'm not going to give you a flip through of the completed journal. I'll do that in another video because all my prompt pages are out of order. They're not sequentially done, so I need to just put a little label or a number on these pages just to indicate which hits which prompt. But I will give you a little tutorial showing you how I made this. Now, as I say, normally this is done in paper and it is pretty easy, but you just need to be a little bit careful with the folds. Before I show you how to do the folds, I just did this with fabric, and I took some of my scrap fabrics that I tested the speckled egg paint on to see how it would take on the fabric. So I just got 2 strips of that and just stitched them together. So there's my fold, or my seam on either side, I should say. And when I stitched this together, I then put a strip of double-sided Bondaweb on the inside, so that when I reversed it, I got a belt that was slightly less flexible. I wanted something that would be able to push through this portion of the closure more easily than just soft fabric. So that's all I did, and this is the scrap that's left over. Now let me show you how to do the folds to create the actual buckle itself. Oh, I should say this was an origami fold, and normally an origami fold, you just burnish your folds and they would stay put. But because this is fabric, it did stay put, but not as well as I would have liked, and it wasn't going to hold up if I was going to use it on the front of my journal. So once I knew where my belt was going to go through, I glued all the other little bits. So I've glued down here, I've glued the side, I've glued the back, but you'll see that in a moment. So let's pop that to one side. Now you can choose whatever width you want. I decided to go with 3.5 centimeters for, I'm going to call this my belt, because I felt that that was in proportion for my journal. So in terms of what length you want, as you can see, I've got a massive piece here that is, it's just normal magazine paper for demonstration purposes, folded over twice. And as I say, it's 3.5 centimeters wide. Now, to determine how long you need this piece to be, take your journal, take one end and wrap it round until you have this portion touching this portion. You don't have to stress it too much. The more you pull it in terms of tightness, the more pressure you're going to be putting on the actual buckle when you've created it. So all I did with mine was I took it over and I touched it down onto my paper, and I then made a mark at that point. So that's where it touched down, and as you can see, I've got a mark there. So this portion here is the portion that will wrap around your journal, and this portion is the portion that will make your buckle, will make this bit. So once you've done your mark, you then need to take the width of your belt, and in my case it was 3.5 centimeters, and times it by 6, which gives me 21 centimeters. And you measure from this point to the right 21 centimeters. So for me, that point was here, and I cut on that mark like that. It helps if you do this on a mat that's got a grid on it, because you want to make sure that your folds are accurate. So the first thing you need to do is to take that corner, this right hand corner, and fold it up to the top like that, and burnish as you go along. Okay, so that's our first fold, and doing it again, that point up to this point up here like that, and burnish. Your second fold will be to take this point and again fold it along this top edge there. So you can either use a ruler or you can put your finger at this point down here, but just bend it over like that, and don't burnish it all the way down, just do a little pinch burnish up there, and then just make a mark where this point meets up here. Okay, take this edge and make a fold so that it meets that point up there. So I'm just going to draw a line with my pencil from that point, or that mark we've just made, straight across my strap. And I'm using my grid map, and I'm doing this line just really to help you see where that fold, the next fold, needs to go. You don't have to do it. If you're comfortable using your grid map, use that. So what you need to do is take this line here, or this edge here, and fold it up along that line. So we're changing the direction of this. Very simple. Just take your paper and fold it straight up like that, and burnish. Now the next fold, you take your strip of paper, and if you put your finger at the top there where you've made that mark, you take your paper and you just bend it in towards you like that. Okay, so doing that again, take your paper, bend it in towards you, and what you want to do is you want to create a point here along that line. Okay, and this is where your grid map comes in helpful to make sure that you get it level. So I'm not going to burnish that fold completely yet. I've just pushed it in slightly, and now I'm going to flip it over. Okay, so this is the fold that I've just started to create, and what I'm doing is I'm lining up this line here with this line here, this one here, so that I get the two meeting together, and when they meet, burnish and make a hard crease. We now need to make a fold along that line, so just bring this portion down so that it continues this line there. So just bring that down and burnish. And now I'm going to flip it over again so that this portion of the strap is facing that way. So there we go. So it now looks like this. Okay, now this was your first fold. That was how we marked this line here. This portion will be used to actually lock this together. The next fold we're going to create is at this point here. So if I lift that up, you can see at that point there. So what we're going to do now is to fold the whole of this portion over that way. Just make sure everything's lined up and just fold that over at that point, making sure everything is lined up at the top, and do your crease. You will see here that we have this little corner triangle down in here, and if you imagine a line coming all the way down, you should see that from that point there where that triangle meets the top, you should see that you have a little flap in here as well. And what we want to do is we want to create a fold from that point down to this point where this underneath triangle meets, but we want to do it on the reverse with that. So what you need to do is just turn it over like that, and you want to get your flap, and on the reverse you've got the two triangles there. You want to fold this so that it is level with where that first triangle started, like that. Okay, so I'm going to show you that again. If I open it up, it looks like that, and you can see that I've made a fold that lines up with the top of this triangle on the front here, the top of this triangle there. So let me show you that one again. I should have had some plain paper, that probably would have helped you a little bit better. So as I say, there is a little triangle on the front here where you folded this portion over. So we have a little triangle on the front there, and we have another triangle tucked in behind. And what you're doing is, I'm going to draw a line for you so that you can see, you are matching up the top of this triangle with the bottom of the one behind. So there is a line coming down there. And what you want to do is you want to create this fold by folding this back behind to line up with the line that you've just drawn. Now if you turn it over on the reverse and open this flap up, you can see that you have those two triangles. So you have a triangle edge here, and this portion that you've just folded over just folds back on itself to line up with that edge where the little triangle was, like that. And I'm flipping it over to the front and it looks like that. To actually finish off the buckle, there's just a couple more moves to do and one fold. So our strap is going this way. This is the front when it's going all in the same horizontal direction, and we're reversing this piece to make it go that way. So flip your piece over to the reverse again. This is the previous fold you've just created, and this edge here I'm going to fold against that edge there, or fold it to meet that, and I'm starting at this point here, down here. So I'm taking my strip of paper and I'm just bending it at that point there, and it will make a diagonal fold for you like that. Now we're almost there, just one final move. Take this little portion here and fold it back over the fold that you've just created, like that, and burnish. Take it to the front, so you're lifting the whole thing over to the front like this. So you've got your two little triangles on the front there, and this is the portion at the back. Now, in here, behind your first triangle is a little hole. You're not folding it in here because there's nothing to anchor it to. You're going in this little pocket here that is the pocket created by this triangle on the front. Just take this point, bend it in on itself so that it goes into that little pocket, like so, and just gently ease it in. Now, it's designed to be a tight fit, so you might need to just fiddle with it a little bit, but it will go in, and if necessary, just ease it in with your bone folder. So here on the back, that was my line where my flap was going to come over after it wrapped round my journal. So I have about 1 centimetre there of extra space, and this is my buckle. And if you put your bone folder in the back here, that is where your belt flap goes through. Now, if necessary, you can just trim the edges of your belt so that it's not quite so hard to get through. You don't want to trim it too much because you'll find that your belt will be loose. If I bring in my journal and wrap it round. There's my buckle closure done with paper. So there we go, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that quick tutorial and hope you could follow it. If you've got any questions, give me a shout, and I'll try and help you out or do a slower one for you. But as I say, I thought I'd give myself a little bit more of a challenge and have a go at creating that in fabric to fit on the front of my journal. So there we go, everybody. That's my finished journal for Junk Journal January. That's my cover and my closure, and I will do another quick video to music showing a flip through of everything I created for Junk Journal January 2024. So until that video, take care, everybody, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye now.